I am Michael Young. This is Using Music in Your Fiction. Just a little bit about me. I am a fantasy author. Dabble in short stories and the like. I love the old fantasy novel. I've got a couple different series. This is my most recent one through Future House Publishing. That's available in the bookstore. But I don't want to talk too much about that. I want to talk about my other great love, which is music. Just a little bit of background on me. I've been singing from a very early age. I did my first, I was the kid in the home videos where their mom was filming the school play and everyone was coming up and saying their lines like this. And then there was me. Now it was Ebenezer Scrooge too. You know, very animated Ebenezer Scrooge in 5th grade. But I've been singing and performing ever since. I did it all through high school, did the madrigals and solo singing and piano, and I played handbells and just all that stuff. My current gig, pretty dang good, is I sing with the Tabernacle Choir. And I've been doing that for about 7 years. Love it. It's been really fun. And I teach voice, teach piano, write music all the time, and it's just a big part of my life. And so, it's kind of hard to take something that's such a big part of your life and not include it in your fiction, right? Something that's so much a part of you. You have to, it kind of bleeds out into the other things that you do. Like in my very first book, the first one I ever published, called The Canticle Kingdom, and people are like, the what? Now, a canticle is this whole musical term for a song. It's about a kingdom inside of a music box that plays magical music. That draws people in to live in the kingdom that's in the box when they hear the music in the kingdom box. So, right from the get-go, music was a big part of my writing. But today we're going to talk a little bit about sort of the why to put it in, why you would maybe want to avoid it, and when you do decide that you do want to do that, some of the ups and downs about how to do that, how to avoid some copyright problems, some legal things, as if you use other people's music, that sort of thing. Yes, you are totally fine. But I love discussion. If you have questions, just go ahead and raise your hand. I am a public school teacher as well, so I'm totally used to that. You guys are actually a lot quieter than my second graders. And I also, it's great teaching in English. I actually am an immersion teacher. And so I spend all day in school. I'm not allowed to speak my native language. I speak in German. All my second graders speak to me in German. But it's kind of refreshing to talk to adults in English in an educational setting. So if I slip into a word or two of Deutsch, you'll know why. So the first thing is, I always want to start out with a discussion. Why would you include music? Well, why include music? What does it? If you don't know why you're doing it, don't do it. It has a purpose. It's got a time and a place. But why would you do it? Yes. Culture, good. It's a good kind of world-building tool. You learn a lot about people, about the music they like. I mean, you can look at each even successive generation in American culture, and you can tell about kind of the changing values and beliefs and culture just by listening to the kind of music that they listen to. Great answer. What else? Why else would you include music in your fiction? Yes, over here.
Music might be really important to the plot of the story.
Ooh, good. Yes, and you can make it an integral part of the plot. And if it is, great. That's a good reason to include music. Very good. What else? Any thoughts? Let's see. It's a little bit cutting off the front of my sentences. Just imagine it says the word music here over and over again. Over this black space. Or, sorry, I used the pronoun it. So it can help, some of the reasons that I thought of, it can help you tell the story, especially the backstory. I love the scene in either the book or the movie of The Hobbit, where they've all gathered in Bilbo's house. He's got all these these dwarves, and then they're all kind of goofy and silly, and then they settle down a little bit and they sing this song about why they're going on this quest, about their kind of its melancholy, and it touches Bilbo, and it's kind of one of the reasons that he decides to go on this quest, is he kind of feels their love of the loss that they felt, and the love of beautiful things that they, so that it is part of the plot. It's, as she mentioned here, it can be a great world building tool. We talked about that. It's good for variety. It can be something novel and interesting if done in manageable doses. You don't want to open, not something that's going to be in every chapter perhaps, or even just a few times in a book, but it can really add some variety. Music involves extremely strong feelings at times. You ever had the experience where you walk into a store or you turn on the radio and a certain song comes on and it takes you back? You're like, oh, they played that at my high school graduation, or they played that, that song was on the radio the day my brother was born, or whatever. It has this quality where it sticks to your memories, and it brings back those incredible emotions that you felt at certain times of your life. It's also an interesting challenge. Just because you can write a novel doesn't mean you can write a song. Songs have totally different rules to them, the different building blocks, and the different things that make them good. It's a different aim. You've got to learn to be very economical with your words. Just the right number of words, just the right number of syllables, oftentimes, and just the right stress of the syllables. I mean, it can be an incredible kind of puzzle that you have to piece together. It's very rewarding when you get it just right. It can also be maddening. You're like, what rhymes with, oh, I have to use the word purple, and nothing rhymes with purple, or whatever. And the nice thing about music, too, is it can provide kind of a recurring theme, something that, a thread that can bind a story together. Tolkien does that very well as well, is he has kind of themes and things that recur throughout. So those are a few reasons I can think of that you can use music to enrich your fiction. But what about, why wouldn't you want to do it?
If you're bad at it.
That's
me.
I love your candor. That's totally true. Yes. If you don't do it right,
don't do it.
It's distracting.
Just say they sang a song. And
exactly.
Move on.
Leave it to their imagination. Yeah. If you do, because especially if you're going in here and this, let's say in your world, and you're saying, oh, this is the great ballad or the great song that's so famous, and then you write a kind of half-baked song. People are like, really? That's what passes for music in this world. Yeah. Yeah. So it's true. If you don't take the time to kind of learn the craft of writing music, it's better to be a little less specific about it. If you do it well, it can be great. But if you do it kind of so-so, it can be distracting and make people be like, oh, maybe this isn't quite as impressive as I thought. What else? Over here.
Even done well, it can get distracting from the story.
Absolutely. We talk a lot about, if you go to these writers' conferences, you hear about pacing, and you hear about rising action, and you want things to be getting more suspenseful and more interesting, and there's a song. Yeah. And then we're back to the action, So if you're not careful, if you put it in the wrong spot, like we interrupt this battle to bring you, the ballad of, yeah, it can be distracting. It can break the narrative flow if not done carefully. Good, very good reason. Any other thoughts? I'll tell you about some of my thoughts on that. Awesome. Once again, you might just have to kind of, okay. I need some music right now. Holding. Elevator music. And it has Frozen. Not the movie. I'm not gonna sing Let It Go, so don't worry.
No, we want you to.
Oh, okay, it's on.
On the table.
All right, if you're good. We'll have karaoke at the end. Yeah, that's a really good question why that's not working. So let me see if it works. All right, well, just one other thing I want to say about that, though, is that some people will gloss over it no matter what. So people just like, oh, right, you see. All right, I think the first time that I actually read Lord of the Rings, I was like, okay, that's not. Yeah, it wasn't until I was a little bit older and understand some of the kind of the nuances and like, oh, that's really beautiful and this language is lovely and it, it's a good world. I didn't appreciate that in I was in like fifth grade or something. So, okay, sorry about that. No computer CPR.
Just kick it.
That's how we do it on the Russian space station. Name a movie. No, a great movie.
But a great line.
Great line. Yeah, great line from not so great movie. That happens. Okay. All right, while we're trying to get that back up. All right. My computer's rebooting. Lovely. Okay, so while that's doing that, I want to talk a little bit about the function of music. The music, whether you hear it on the radio or whether it's in an event, music has a function. And if you know the function of your music, you're more likely to pick the right kind of music. So what are some things that music is actually used for? For example, I'll throw out the first one. Music is often used in a celebratory manner. You use it to mark an event. At a wedding, you have certain kinds of music to show, hey, this is a joyous event, everybody be happy. What other things can you use music for? Yes, over here.
Set the mood.
Tell me more about that.
Like to create a feeling and emotion.
Oh my God, like what? Give me an example. Like what kind of emotion could you set the mood?
Like make it a super sad song, make the readers or audience or whatever feel sad.
Sure, yeah, feel sympathetic. I like that too. So like maybe your character just went through a breakup and they hear the song there, minds of yeah, totally. No, that goes back to talking about it. It brings strong emotions in the sense that it tells your reader, gives them a clue about how to feel and be sympathetic for your protagonist. Very good.
If your character is a musician or does music, either playing music or singing or sings music, maybe they're more.
Oh, I like that. Good. So it's part of their character. It's part of what they do to de-stress. And it's probably what they might go do when they're chewing on some problem that's happening in the plot. I like that very much. Thank you. Okay, it is coming back up. What other thoughts? What else can music do?
It's used in military war.
Very good. I like that. It can be used as kind of a rallying thing. It's a way to get people pumped up and you're ready, whether it's to play in a rock concert or to fight a battle or to whatever it is. Even like in stores, they use peppy music because you want to go out and shop, right? Good. Yes.
I know in ancient times it's been used for like mnemonic devices for Montessori's.
Good, yes. It's used to teach. It's used to help you remember things. Yes. As a elementary school teacher, I do quite a bit of this. I use music to help content stick, especially I'm teaching them a new language. A lot of things I use to help that kind of stick better in their minds. Because otherwise, kids will go home and hum a tune, but if I just say, okay, here are the conjugations of the verb to be, they forget. There, Mr. Young. Okay, we are just about back. It will tell me it will stop asking me if I want to get on the Wi-Fi. For the last time, no. Okay, here we go. Good, so, and sometimes, as we were saying, it sometimes is better just to leave the music to their imagination. Just say they sang a song. Describe the music rather than describing the words of the music. You can do it without writing all the words down. You can avoid copyright that way. And unless you are really a gifted songwriter or want to become one, then it's sometimes the best option. And you can describe the emotions. You can describe the people's reaction to the music without spelling out everything in the music as well. You can trust your readers a lot of times to, even fill in their own like, so they say, oh, it's a sad song. The reader fills in their own version of what they think that is. So that can work too. Just, that's not always a thing, but you leave that as an option. Another way that you can use music in fiction, especially in a fantasy setting, is music is often associated with magic. You think of the story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin, where he uses his music to enchant. You know, there's a lot of stories, a lot of fables where music is used as kind of a way to draw people in, to make them succumb to their spell. The Lorelei legend, where she is a beautiful woman singing in the middle of the river, and she's singing and luring the sailors to their doom. It can be, and it's interesting because music can be both a positive magic and a negative magic. Like if you watch the movie Tangled, where she sings the song and it's a restorative, it's a healing magic. Same kind of like the Little Mermaid. But then there's also things like the Pied Piper or the Lorelei, where music can be used as a snare, as a trap. So music is already, there's something about it that is just naturally, even in the real world, kind of magical. And where people, we take just our regular speaking voices and we turn it into something better, something else, something kind of mysterious. Especially when you're blending with other people, it can be a really powerful experience, even without actual magical elements to it. But that's something to consider. And the thing is music really does have an actual power. It's not just magical spells and stories. Music, in its functions, can also motivate, it can calm, it can inspire actual people. It sends messages to people, even between people who don't speak the same language. You can use music to unite people of different backgrounds and cultures, and even spoken languages. So that's something also to consider in your fiction. And it also it's something that physically helps your body. It lowers your stress, it increases your health. It's something that can have actual physical, measurable effects on the human body. Wi-Fi again. Or Heather, no. So at this point, I want to open up. So what are some examples of music in fiction that you've seen? Either a good example or a bad example. Let's talk about that a little bit. What are some thoughts? What are some ones that you've seen in books that you've read? Any thoughts? Oh, you're thinking. I can tell you're thinking.
I have one.
Go ahead, yeah.
In The Name of the Wind, the main character, both
Yes.
plays Lou, and that's like a main, really important part of his character and something that he really cares about.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's part of like how he actually solves problems with his music. He's like, oh, I'm broke. I'm going to go to this competition, and I'm going to make money and be famous. But yeah, he uses it to actually get out of problems. It's a plot device. So yeah, I think that's one where it was used quite well. Good example. Any other thoughts? Yes, right up here.
I read a book called Dragon's Drum. I don't remember who it's by, but I know they went to a music school.
Yeah, nice.
There's dragons. There's magic too.
A magical music school.
Yeah, so there was a lot of music in it because they were at a music school.
Cool. And so, how was it? Did you think it was used well, or was it distracting?
I think it was well written. I remember how the one character, he was a boy and he had a very high voice, and then he changed to a lower voice, and so that was a part of the plot.
Oh, sure. It's part of his character development. Puberty. Nice. Yes, that was a bit dramatic. I went for my 7th grade concert. I was singing soprano, and my 8th grade concert was tenor. But other thoughts? Have you seen a time when music has been used clumsily or poorly in a book? Yes, in the back.
Let me preface this by saying that I'm probably the biggest Harry Potter nerd in the world. But I love it so much, but this is the one thing about it that bugs me because they don't do it very well in the book. They fix it a little bit in the movie. But in the book, they make references like, oh, music is the magic of all we do here.
Yes.
But they'll make like very, very small mentions of it. Like, oh, there's this artist. Oh, there's this artist. And that's it. And it's like, you get little glimpses of what could be part of this world. And she does such a great job of world building in so many different facets.
Yeah.
And all these really small things, and like, you know, it becomes an experience. And then there's music, and it's like it's absent. It's not just that
interesting. Yeah.
it's like noticeably absent. Like it's like not even there at all, and it makes it a little.
So you kind of need to commit. You either need to, go all out here. You need to flesh it out, or don't.
Yeah.
It's kind of a wishy-washy in the middle. I like that. Yeah.
I read a book whose name I perhaps fortunately do not remember, where
Nice.
the alien technology was all based on music.
Uh-huh.
But then the author made quite a few horrid musical theory errors.
Oh no! Seriously, like specific musical theory?
Like the 4 factions each had a different kind of music system that they used.
Sure.
And she was trying to make them all different. So one was based on major chords and one was based on minor chords. But then one was sharps and one was flats, which doesn't even make any sense.
No, that doesn't make any sense at all.
And she had her character call herself a mezzo soprano when she was hitting the super high ceiling notes.
Like, that is a color tour. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And it was through the whole thing. It was so, I didn't believe a thing she said because she didn't get the basic stuff right.
You know what? That is a really good segue actually to my next point. Is that if you're going to use music, you need to know the terminology. You got to be able to talk about music in a way that other musicians are going to respect. And musical terminology, it's a little bit tough because it's kind of a hodgepodge. A lot of what we think about as music is based on the Western classical music tradition that flourished in Europe for hundreds of years. It went through all these different musical phases. The thing about that is that a lot of the terms are in Italian, some of them are in German, some of them are in French, some of them are in Latin. So it's kind of a hodgepodge of different languages. Luckily, it's pretty easy. I've got I'm putting my notes here to my presentation up online on my site, and you can find, I've got some things there where you can go study up on your musical theory terms, or some of your musical terms, so that you don't sound like you're just kind of throwing it out there. And so exactly, if you throw it out there just to throw it out there without understanding what it means, then other people that are versed in music, and there's quite a few of them out there, it's a pretty common pursuit, are going to laugh at you. And are probably going to stop reading because it's because it bothers them. Yeah.
I would like to point out, you don't even have to be well versed in music. I can pick out a melody on the piano if it's not too complicated, that's it. And I still caught these words.
And it was still annoying, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? Let's talk a little bit more about oh, sorry. Do you have another question? I missed somebody.
I was going to say.
Going once? Okay, go ahead, sir.
I was going to say, I bet there's a really high correlation between people who read and people who study and know a little bit about music.
Oh, absolutely. And there are a lot of similar kind of transferable skills. Yeah, they just think that create the creative people among us.
Yeah.
There's a lot of overlap. The Venn diagram is quite
but another one
quite close together. Yeah.
This is kind of similar to that. So I grew up in a musical family, so I'm
nice.
kind of a music guy, but this is different. Like there are other ways to kind of rub people wrong with music.
Oh yeah.
So for me, I don't know if you guys have read Ready Player One.
I have read Ready Player One. Yes.
It's a super entertaining book. It's fun and interesting. There's so many 80s music references there that really rubbed me wrong because I grew up in the 80s and
Sure.
the music went through like super pop culture music stuff, but tried to play them off as obscure 80s music. And to me, it's like Duran Duran's not obscure.
No, yeah,
at all.
seriously.
Everybody who has heard of 80s music knows those lyrics. Like so some of those mistakes can happen that way too. And I don't know.
And you kind of have to. It's hard too with music. You have to kind of take yourself out of your own head. You've got your own attitudes about music, your own likes and dislikes. You've got to realize a lot of people don't share that. And so you've got to realize that the music that you think is great and awesome and wonderful it's not going to be everyone's opinion. So if you do use it, don't be surprised if some people, react not as positively as you. Oh, that's a good question. One thing I want to cover about music is that there are some pitfalls as well when you get into copyright restrictions. Copyright with music is very, very strict. If you cannot use copyright lyrics without the permission of the copyright holder. That's anything. That is any line of a song. And you can get permission. You can write the copyright holder and ask for permission, but they are going to charge you pretty good. In researching this, I'm looking into a couple instances where they used a few lines of a copyrighted song. We're talking $200, $300, $400, $500 for the privilege of using those little lines. So you gotta ask yourself, is this really worth it? Is this essential? Is this exactly what I want to do? Saying that though, as soon as music gets over a certain age, it can become in the public domain. But we're talking about, we're not talking about anything in the last century, really. It takes a very long time for music to go into the public domain. And so you really got to do your homework. If you want to use something from like the time of Mozart and Beethoven, you're okay. If you want to use something even from Gilbert and Sullivan, which late 1800s, you're okay there. Those things have passed into the public domain. That means they're not copyrighted. Anybody can take them and use them, reference them, or even change them up without having to pay anybody for the privilege. But it's better to err on the side of caution.
I have a question on that.
Yeah, go right ahead.
So how does that work with song titles?
Oh, perfect. Actually, that's
I'm
where
reading
we're
it.
going.
That's because like a book like High Fidelity, which is all about top 10 lists in music.
Yeah,
How do we get away with that?
The titles are not copyrighted, but a lot of times the title is in the song, right? And so if the title is also part of the song lyrics, you might be in trouble. I mean, you think of the song by the Beatles, She Loves Me, right? She loves you. So they say it like, that's like the whole song, right? She loves you, yeah. Oh, on and on and on. The name of the name of the song is also in there, so it's a gray area. But also, just ask yourself whether it's really, really important. And if it is, you can get away with just mentioning the titles, just, be careful. Copyright.gov is a great place to go. It's got all of the United States guidelines. After so many years in public domain, yes.
So can you just mention the artist? Like, could you have somebody that says, I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan? Or...
Yes, their names are not copyrighted. So you can talk about the artists, you can talk about the song titles, as long as it's not also part of the lyrics. That's okay. I just have to be careful about that. Like if you bash a living person in your book, that can also kind of get you in kind of weird legal ground. You'd probably have to be pretty well known, mainstream for them to care about that. But you never know. So I'd be careful about mentioning living people too. Living music artist. If you want to talk about Elvis, that's probably not such a big deal. But Taylor Swift, maybe not. So it's interesting that way. I want to talk a little bit about actually once you've decided, okay, I want to incorporate a song with actual words into my narrative. How do I go about doing that? And walk you through a little bit about my process, about how I do this. First thing is some things to keep in mind. A lot of good music uses repetition. You've got the chorus. You've got ideas that are either you've got the same idea at the beginning as you do at the end. It kind of comes full circle. Or that you're kind of beating home one idea. That often works, especially if there's something that you want to get across that you want the reader to remember or the listener to remember, is hammering it home more than once. If you're doing, say, a ballad that's more like telling a story, you might have here's a verse, so we talk about the story, and then there's a refrain. It's kind of, that talks a little bit, that's kind of ties it together. That's the one, and maybe the theme of our story. And what a brave man was he, or just some little what a brave man was he. Music, it's good to have, if you're doing multiple verses, is I sit out and I plan out, okay, what is my overarching theme of the song? And then I talk about the